Think you understand the French Revolution? When you picture it, do you imagine the guillotine, the ominous, terrifying blade ready to drop? Forget the mechanical executions for a moment. I'm about to unveil one of the most outrageous and shocking executions in history. One carried out by a mob with nothing but their bare hands. This is the chilling account of Princess Lamballe, the best friend of Marie Antoinette. What a mob did to her on September 3rd, 1792 is nothing short of unbelievable. We're going to uncover the verified facts of her brutal murder and dissect the stomach-churning legends that still circulate today. This is a story about unwavering loyalty, immense terror, and the alarming speed with which a human being can become a symbol of hatred that must be annihilated. Before she became public enemy number one, Princess Lamballe led an extraordinary life, filled with the kind of drama you'd only expect in a novel. Born Marie Thérèse Louise de Savocaron in Italy in 1749 to a fabulously wealthy family, she married the Prince de Lamballe at just 17, one of the richest men in France. Tragically, her fairy tale took a devastating turn when her husband died within a year. Leaving her a widow at the tender age of 18, this personal tragedy thrust her straight into the glamorous yet perilous world of the French court at Versailles, where she would meet another young foreigner, Marie Antoinette. The bond between them was instant and legendary. In a palace teeming with artifice and pretense, they found solace in each other's friendship. When Marie Antoinette ascended to the throne, she entrusted Lamballe with the significant position of superintendent of her household. This responsibility was far more than a mere job. It meant that Lamballe was considered part of the royal family itself, yet such loyalty came at a dire cost. As public sentiment soured toward Marie Antoinette, that animosity extended to her friends as well. Malicious pamphlets circulated throughout Paris, hurling vile accusations at the Queen's inner circle. They twisted the genuine friendships between women like Lamballe into scandalous rumors of secret love affairs, inciting the public's anger even further. The once quiet, loyal friend was now depicted as a supervillain labeled a corrupting influence, a spy for Austria and an enemy of the French Republic. A gigantic target was painted on her back, and soon the chaos was about to escalate beyond imagination. It all began with the storming of the Bastille on July 14, 1789, an event that marked the onset of a seismic shift in power. The monarchy began to collapse, and aristocrats fled the country in a desperate attempt to save their lives. Amid this turmoil, Princess Lamballe found herself safe in London. Her family and friends pleaded with her to remain there, to avoid the brewing storm in France. But her loyalty to Marie Antoinette was unshakable. The Queen was in grave danger, and Lamballe felt compelled to return to her side. In a heartfelt letter, Marie Antoinette urged her to come back, writing, "I must live and die with her." Resolutely, Lamballe penned her will, painfully aware that she might be walking straight into her own death. And returned to Paris, she re-entered a city engulfed in chaos. Lamballe was there when the royal family attempted a disastrous escape, and she witnessed the mob storm the palace on June 20th, 1792. Eyewitnesses recounted that, even amid the violence, her primary concern was the Queen's safety rather than her own well-being. Tragically, that loyalty would cost her everything. On August 10, 1792, the monarchy was completely dismantled. The royal family was locked away in a fortress known as the Temple, while Lamballe was separated from the Queen and confined to La Force prison, one of the darkest and most terrifying places imaginable. As late August unfolded, Paris descended into total panic. An enemy army was reportedly marching toward the city, threatening to incinerate it if any harm came to the royal family. The panic culminated in a horrific response. Instead of rallying in fear, the revolutionaries turned rabid. They became convinced that spies and traitors lurked in every jail cell, plotting to escape and wreak havoc. Revolutionary leader Georges Danton cried out, "To conquer them, we must dare. Dare again, always dare, and France is saved." But this daring spirit quickly morphed into a frenzy of violence. On September 2nd, the slaughter began. For 5 horrifying days, mobs descended upon the prisons, embarking on one of the bloodiest killing sprees in history, referred to now as the September Massacres. Men and women were dragged from their cells. Fake trials lasted mere seconds before the condemned were butchered in the courtyards. The streets ran red with blood, while Lambal remained trapped in the midst of this chaos, helplessly listening to the anguished screams echoing outside her cell. More than a mere prisoner, she had become the ultimate prize for the mob, symbolizing everything they despised. It was only a matter of time before they would turn their wrath upon her. On the morning of September 3, 1792, 2 guards entered her cell. The killings had been relentless throughout the night. Now it was her turn to stand before the so-called tribunal. This was no legitimate court. It was a mockery, a makeshift assembly of men seated at a blood-soaked table, tasked with determining life and death in an instant. Upon entering, Lambal nearly fainted at the sight of the piles of corpses in the courtyard. They posed a few questions to her, and she maintained remarkable composure. Then came the ultimate test. They demanded her allegiance, swear to liberty and equality while denouncing the king and queen. This was a final, desperate chance at survival. Yet she resolutely refused. "I will readily swear to the first," she proclaimed, "but I cannot swear to the second." "It is not in my heart," a voice interjected softly nearby. "Swear? If you do not swear, you are dead." Despite the ominous threat, Lambal held firm. Another account records her stating, "Whether the first dies sooner or later is a matter of indifference to me. I have made the sacrifice of my life." The verdict was announced immediately. Let Madame be set at liberty. It may have sounded like a reprieve, an act of mercy. But it was a secret signal, a coded message for the mob lying in wait outside. As she was pushed through the door, it became clear what awaited her. The moment she stepped into the courtyard, a hellish scene unfolded. The ground was transformed into a blood-soaked slaughterhouse, littered with lifeless bodies as the furious mob closed in on her. What transpired next is chilling, and while we must distinguish between verified history and wild rumors, the confirmed facts are horrifying enough. What we know is this: eyewitnesses described a woman dressed in white standing alone for a fleeting moment. Then the first strike came, a blow from a pike or hammer hitting her in the back of the head. Her cap fell, and her long blonde hair cascaded down. A second blow struck her forehead, causing her to crumple to the ground. The chaos that followed was a complete frenzy. The mob descended upon her, stabbing, bludgeoning her to death with pikes and sabers in a brutal, chaotic scene that ended all too quickly, yet they were not finished. In a gruesome ultimate act of degradation, they severed her head from her body and stripped her remains naked, leaving her lifeless form displayed in the street. Her body was never recovered. These brutal events represent the cold, undeniable truth. She was killed for her unwavering loyalty and for refusing to betray her friend. The horrifying truth does not end there. The mob didn't stop with the murder. They transformed her severed head into a grotesque trophy, parading it on a pike as they marched through the streets of Paris. Their destination? The Temple prison, where they intended to force Marie Antoinette to behold what they had done to her closest friend. This was pure psychological warfare. Upon reaching the Temple, the mob stood beneath the royal window, viciously calling for the queen to emerge and view the ghastly trophy of their brutality. Some accounts even claim they wanted her to kiss Lambal's lips one last time. Inside the prison, the royal family would hear the terrifying clamor outside. The king's valet recognized the severed head and understood its horrific significance. As Marie Antoinette inquired about the commotion, guards rushed to barricade the window. We may never know if she actually saw the head herself, but we do know that a guard reported to her bluntly, "They are trying to show you the head of Princess Lambal." Just hearing those words shattered her. Marie Antoinette reportedly let out an anguished scream and collapsed, spiraling into a faint while weeping throughout the night. The mob had achieved their goal. They inflicted deep psychological trauma on the queen by murdering her closest companion. The grotesque image of Lambal's head on a pike would haunt Marie Antoinette for the remainder of her days. While the verified truth of Lambal's tragic fate is gruesome enough, the utterly lurid myths that followed are nothing short of extraordinary. For centuries, wild and grotesque stories have circulated about her death, but many are unfounded. Let's debunk the most persistent myths surrounding this horrific event. The most egregious and sensational myth is that of sexual desecration. Tales spread that Lambo had been raped, that her breasts were severed and her genitals mutilated. These stories are almost certainly false. Historical accounts from contemporaries, even those who despised her, make no mention of such atrocities. Rather, these grotesque details were likely conjured later to paint the revolutionaries as inhuman monsters. There is an official record listing the items recovered from her pockets, indicating that her body was still clothed when found. Even more puzzling are the rumors of cannibalism, claiming her heart was ravaged and consumed by the mob. This, too, appears to be a fabrication crafted for maximum shock value, devoid of credible evidence. Many other myths are equally dubious. One story claims that her severed head was taken to a hairdresser, powdered and styled to appear more presentable for the queen. This never happened. Another romanticized notion suggests that Lambo concealed secret messages in her hair for the queen, a charming idea lacking any evidence. The most pervasive myth is that Marie Antoinette was forced to kiss the lips of Lambo's severed head. We know from multiple historical accounts that this did not occur. Why do such bizarre and grotesque myths persist such as these? The answer lies in the realms of propaganda, the thirst for shock value, and humanity's fascination with dark, gruesome narratives. Yet, while we focus on these sensational fictions, we risk losing sight of the real woman at the center of this tragedy. The execution of Princess Lambo was not a state punishment. It was a lynching, a ritualistic murder perpetrated by a mob that saw her as a potent symbol, not as a person. Her death marks one of the most infamous moments in the annals of the French Revolution. The verifiable truth of her demise is sobering enough. She was a woman whose only crime was loyalty. She chose to return to a city engulfed in flames to stand by her friend, and for her loyalty she faced a sham. Tribunal refused to abandon her principles and was handed over to a mob that would beat her to death and decapitate her. Ultimately, her severed head was weaponized as a tool of psychological torment. The tragic reality of her story is more sinister without the need for embellishments. It vividly illustrates how swiftly political rage can strip away compassion, how easily a crowd can transform into a deadly force, and how one person's existence can be distilled down to a singularly hateful idea. The narrative of Princess Lambo serves as an unflinching reminder of the human cost of revolution. It grapples with what transpires when personal loyalty collides with political fury, pushing us to confront the unsettling truth that the most horrifying stories aren't always the fabrications. They are the brutal realities that unfold throughout history. Princess Lambo remains a tragic figure, often recalled more for the savage manner of her death than for her life. What about her story shocks you the most? Do you believe history should emphasize verified facts, or should we also explore the powerful myths that arise? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and for further deep dives into the dark and frequently misunderstood chapters of history, be sure to subscribe. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to support our work. Never miss an upload. Like this vid, drop a comment and share it with others to help us grow this historical community.